So this is going to be a really long video. We're going to be ranking every single killer perk in the game. I don't know why I'm doing this, but you know, let's give it a go. So we'll start off with Bitter Murmur. I might have to search up some of these effects. I think I know most of them, but yeah, I might need to search up some of them. Okay, starting off with Bitter Murmur. Bitter Murmur is probably a C tier perk. Not Brutal Strength. I think Bitter Murmur, basically Bitter Murmur reveals auras of survivors after they complete a generator. So it is okay. It doesn't help too much though. There are definitely better information perks, but you know, whatever. It's fine. Moving on is Brutal Strength. Brutal Strength makes kicking pallets and generators faster. Brutal Strength is probably a B tier perk. Because it does help with zoning occasionally. I might actually put it C+, because it only helps with some killers, like Wesker. It does help quite a bit. Blight, you know, killers with mobility that can catch up, but bad killers, if you run Brutal Strength, it's kind of just placebo. Usually it doesn't give you any distance that you wouldn't have already had, so that's why I think it's okay. Moving on, we have Darestalker. Darestalker is definitely a D tier perk. It doesn't really help at all. It can only help if you're slugging. But if you're slugging, then you are playing kind of weirdly. I guess you could run like Knockout. Knockout does help with Darestalker, because basically with Darestalker you can see down survivors' auras. That's basically what it does. Now usually, even if you are slugging, even if you want to like bring a whole like full build for that, you can find survivors quite easily if you just have okay game sense. So yeah, overall I think there's just better perks that give better value, but at least it's not a detriment. There are actually some perks which deserve to be D, like F tier. There actually is. There's some really garbage perks. All right, now, well, speaking of that, Distressing is F tier. Distressing increases your terror radius by 22%, which is a downside, and then it increases your blood points. So yeah, overall it's a terrible perk. The only time this could ever be used, which, you know, it's not even that good in these situations, is if you're running a terror radius build where you actually want your terror radius to be bigger. But if you're doing that, you're running some garbage perks like Colrophobia, or like, you know, shitty perks like that. So yeah, Distressing just, it's not good. It's literally a detriment in nearly every situation. Okay, moving on is No One Escapes Death. No One Escapes Death is probably A tier. I might put it in A+, but it does get countered by Swift. That's literally the only reason why it's here. It can get countered by Swift. So yeah, No One Escapes Death. Basically, once all the generators are powered, every survivor becomes insta-downed, and you have increased movement speed. It is a hex, and it can be cleansed, but it does give you some... Basically, you'll always get guaranteed value from it, so it's a really good perk. It can turn games from losses into draws, or even straight up wins if the survivors don't play well. So I think it's really good. It does save games. It can straight up save games. I might put it A+, yeah. It's a really good perk. Yeah. It'll be either bottom of A+ or top of A. I might put it top of A for now, but I might move it up later. Okay, Thrill of the Hunt. Probably... Yeah, I would say it's D tier, because Undying is just a better version of it. Basically, it decreases totem cleansing speeds. So it's not... I mean, it can help with builds where you want to save totems. I might put it C. I don't think it's better than Bitter Murmur, but it can be useful in like totem builds. But again, Undying basically is just a better version of it, because Thrill of the Hunt can be cleansed, so you can just get rid of all of it, right? Like, Thrill of the Hunt is a hex at the end of the day, and it doesn't work on its own. You need other perks for it to be good. So yeah, no, I will put it D, because yeah, it doesn't do anything on its own. It's literally a dead perk slot if you have it without anything else. So yeah, it's okay. Whatever. Very boring perk. Moving on is Insidious. Insidious, when you are standing still, your terror radius is decreased. I would put it D tier. It's probably a little bit better than Darestalker. The only time this would ever be good is if you're camping someone and you don't want the survivors to know that you're there. But even then, that encourages altruism. So Yeah, it doesn't really do too much. If you're standing still, then you're kind of not playing optimally. And after that anti-camp mechanic got introduced, this is kind of just a terrible perk. Yeah, no, I might put it F tier. Although it's not a detriment, so I'll put it bottom of D tier. I think even Darestalker is better, because at least with Darestalker, you can get value if, you know, you can't find a survivor on the ground and, you know, you can see their aura. I guess that can, you know, you can get some value. Insidious, I don't think there's much value to get unless you're like cannibal and you're camping, but even then, you're camping from a distance, so it's, yeah. And proxy camping when the survivors know you're there is probably better. It's probably better for the survivors to know you're there rather than not know you're there. So, okay, moving on. We have Iron Grasp. Iron Grasp is basically just a worse agitation, but it's not like that bad. I would probably put it, it's probably like here. Iron Grasp, it can save you hooks. It does counter like boil over. Yeah. It probably is actually like down here, just because like it only increases the movement, the amount of time that you can hold a survivor on your shoulders by like 5%, I think. I don't know exactly how much, but it's quite a small number. So it's not that good. There are times, obviously, when like you're just about to get the hook and don't quite make it, but that's why agitation exists. It's just a way better version of this perk. I guess you could run them together, but that's not really necessary. So I think it's just an unnecessary perk, but it isn't necessary, but it can like get value. Okay, moving on is Scorchhook Monstrous Shrine. It's probably like bottom of C tier. Basically it increases the duration that survivors are getting sacrificed, like how far the bar goes if you're far away from the hook. It can be useful, but you're never really going to get value from it, and you have to hook survivors on a Scorch Hook. Yeah, I'll probably put it D tier. It's probably worse than Thrill of the Hunt even, because the thing is, yeah, you have to put them on a Scorch Hook, which isn't the easiest thing ever, right? Like it is kind of RNG, depending on if you can make it to a Scorch Hook in the first place. And even when this perk activates, you have to be far away from the hook, which means you're playing inefficiently. You're not controlling the area of the hook survivor, and also the amount that it is increased, like the actual progress of sacrifice, isn't really useful enough for it to do much. So that's why I think it's there. Okay, Shattered Hope. Basically what it does is if you destroy a boon totem, it reveals the aura of survivors within the range. And also, instead of snuffing boon totems, you destroy them. So that isn't really that good. I swear it used to decrease totem cleansing speeds, but basically the reason that isn't really good is that it's so situational. Survivors have to actually like bring a boon perk. And also, like, because of the fact that Boon Circle of Healing got nerfed, I feel like it's not actually a good perk really anymore at all. It might have been useful, yeah, like when Boon Circle of Healing was a thing, but even when Boon Circle of Healing was a thing, you'd probably get more value out of bringing slowdowns to like counter the healing speeds rather than just revealing the auras for like 8 seconds. Yeah, it's quite a bad perk, but at least it's not a detriment. Okay, Sloppy Butcher. Sloppy Butcher got nerfed when they made Mangled like a timed effect, because now like it only lasts a certain duration. I think it still can get value. I'd probably put it like the top of C+, maybe B tier, but yeah, unless the survivors heal right away, you're not going to get much value from it, because they can just wait out the 90 seconds. 90 seconds is quite a long time, so I guess, you know, it can decrease the speeds, but again, I mean, it's only 25% less speed, so that's only like a few seconds that it gives you. So I mean, yeah, it can add up if you get lots of hits, but that basically means you'd have to be hit and running, although it does work on a hook survivor as well. So I guess, yeah, it is some okay slowdown, but if the timer runs out, it's completely useless. And yeah, you need to be using an M1 killer. It doesn't work on like special attacks. So yeah, I think, yeah, it's probably worse than Brutal Strength, actually. They both give like an effect where it's like they give you a little bit extra distance, a little bit extra slowdown, and you know, that's always okay. it can like save a gen, for example, like if, you know, with Sloppy Butcher, like if they spent a few extra seconds healing, then you might be able to actually stop a gen from being done. So, you know, whatever. Okay, moving on is Spies from the Shadows. I think it's like, it's okay. It's not like that bad. It's probably worse than these though. It's probably better than Bitter Murmur, actually. It can actually help you find survivors if they're around you and you don't see them. Crows are quite common in maps, actually, so, you know, it can help. It is only within a certain range, and there do need to be crows that activate, and I think there aren't many crows anymore. I think, like, for some reason, there are just less crows now, so that does kind of make this perk a little bit worse. It also has a bit of a cooldown, I think. I'm pretty sure it does, but it's not that much. But yeah, there are better information perks in this. It probably is better than Iron Grasp. It's a bit of an underrated perk. I feel like people would usually put it in D tier, but maybe I'll put it... It's probably not on the same level as these, though. Yeah, for now I'll put it here, but I might move it up a bit. Unrelenting. It doesn't really do anything. Like, the only thing I've seen is like Aranad, who's like a clown main. He says that this reduced cooldown to missed attacks like somehow can help a lot, but if you're missing attacks, that means you're playing badly. And even the increase, like after you miss, it doesn't always guarantee a hit after that. Sometimes it just straight up doesn't do much. So I think it's probably even worse than Darestalker. You know what? Maybe I'll put it like here. But I think it is quite a bad perk in general. Yeah. Moving on is Whispers. You can hear the entity whispering if survivors are near you. I guess it's like, it's better than these. Oh, actually, no, it's not. I'd probably put it like here. Doesn't really do too much either, like, because the thing is, you don't know where they are within that 32-meter range, or however far it is, and usually you just be able to find survivors on gens. You don't need Whispers. The only way the Whispers would even work is if survivors were hiding, and it doesn't really happen too much, but I guess it can give you some information, so it's better than, like, these perks, because, like, these don't really do anything. It's probably worse than Monstrous Shrine, though. Alright, moving on is Agitation. Agitation's a good perk. It can actually help a lot. I'd probably put it here. It's actually quite an underrated perk. I know that Super Elf used it on his Nurse win streak to get 1,000 wins. The reason that Agitation's really good is because you can hook survivors in areas where there are lots of gens going on. Sometimes you wouldn't be able to reach a hook that's really good, and you have to like hook a survivor in the corner of the map, which means you're not able to pressure like survivors while they're hooked. Whereas with this perk, you can take them to the best hook possible, and you can defend that area, which does actually save gens. You can also get lots of value out of Scorch Hook Pain Resonance with it, because usually you wouldn't be able to make some Scorch Hooks, and this perk makes it possible to reach them. Sometimes Pain Resonance won't go off by the time a gen gets done. Like, a gen will get done just before you hook them on a Pain Res hook. So this does guarantee slowdown using that perk. So yeah, I think Agitation's actually a really good perk, and plus it just buys time in general. So yeah, it's good. Moving on is Unnerving Presence. Unnerving Presence is a really bad perk. It's probably... Yeah, like, because the thing is, Unnerving Presence sometimes even helps survivors. Basically, it decreases the skill check zones, like how big they are, by a certain amount when you're in a certain terror radius. So I'm pretty sure Behavior actually made it so that perks like Oppression and Overcharge don't apply to this perk anymore, which basically makes this perk useless. Yeah, it's not as bad. Maybe it's even down here, honestly, like, because the thing is, the skill checks are still big enough to where you'd hit them, and it actually increases the awareness of the survivors, because they're like, oh, the skill checks are smaller, I gotta make sure I hit them, right? So I actually think it's kind of a detriment sometimes, and also it only applies in your terror radius. The only time that I could see this perk getting any sort of use is if you're running Doctor, but I know for a fact that Merciless Storm, it doesn't make the Merciless Storm skill check smaller anymore. So I actually think it's kind of, it maybe just because you can get some gen slowdown potentially, it's probably better than like all of these perks. It's probably not better than Thrill of the Hunt, but it's, yeah, it can get value, and these perks don't really do anything. At least there's a possibility of a skill check being missed with this, so whatever. Oh, moving on is this perk. It's completely useless. Yeah, so it's called Bloodhound. It's from the Wraith. Pools of blood are shown in bright red and can be tracked 4 seconds longer than normal. Basically, this doesn't mean anything. You can easily see blood on the ground. There are way better perks. At least it's not a detriment, so it's better than distressing. But it's a very bad perk. It basically doesn't give any value at all. And also, apparently, they can be tracked 4 seconds longer than normal, but I don't know. That's a really bad perk. It's better than like some. It's worse than all these because it actually doesn't really give any value whatsoever. So yeah, it's definitely down here. Predator might be the worst perk in the game. What it does is it makes scratch marks closer together, but this actually is a detriment most of the time. You can sometimes lose a survivor because if the scratch marks are closer together, then it's not as obvious like what route they've gone. And also I'm pretty sure there are a few bugs with Predator, like how the scratch marks disappear quicker, or like they don't always appear. So yeah, Predator is a terrible perk. It's very outdated. It should be changed. Okay, moving on is Shadowborn. Shadowborn has a new effect. When blinded by any means, you're granted 10% haste for 10 seconds. So this only works if a flashlight is being shined at you and you get blinded. And I mean, that's not terrible. It's better than all these perks. But I still think it's D tier because they have to bring a flashlight, so it is situational. So, but I do think that's pretty good though. 10% haste for 10 seconds means you could probably get a hit eventually. It's better than all these perks, so yeah, I'll put it here. Enduring is probably like here. Basically, stuns from pallets are 50% less, I think. So basically the stun is instant. You don't get stunned, which means you can kind of just run into pallets and then it doesn't matter if they stun you. So I do think it's a decent perk. It doesn't give as much value as these, like it doesn't give map pressure or like insta downs, but it does mean that you are saving time, so you do get extra distance using enduring. So I think it's a decent perk. You can run it with like Spirit Fury to make the pallet break instantly if you get stunned, and it's probably good synergy with Brutal Strength as well. So it has a lot of synergy, and it's a decent perk. I would run it with something else though. Yeah, I think it's here. It may go down to like here, but yeah, right now I think it's here. Lightborn. Yeah, I mean, I'll put Lightborn. It's probably C tier, because the thing is, if all 4 survivors run flashlights, it does help a lot if you bring Lightborn. And unlike these other perks, you can actually see that the survivors are bringing flashlights. It's not like Shadowborn. Oh, actually, it is like Shadowborn because you can see if they bring flashlights, but Lightborn completely makes it so that you cannot be blinded, whereas this just gives you haste. So, and they don't stack. So yeah, this is basically a better version of Shadowborn now. And yeah, it can help because sometimes there won't be any walls to look into. So you basically have to waste time not picking up the survivor. So it can give a lot of value if you can't pick up a survivor. Also, you can see their aura if they try and blind you, which means you can possibly get value from anti-loop from it. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's situational. But you can see that they brought it. So I'll put it above all these perks here. Probably better than Spies from the Shadows as well. Moving on is Tinkerer. Tinkerer is a good perk as well. I'd probably put it like here. Basically, when a generator reaches 70%, you can see where it is, and you gain undetectable. This is really good on killers with insta-downs, like Cannibal. It's good on basically every killer. It's just free generator information. It definitely saves gens. and you basically know where to pressure at all times. It's kind of a crutch perk for killers that don't know how to pressure gens, but I mean, it's whatever, right? Like, it is a good perk in general. It gives guaranteed value, so yeah, I think it's there. A nurse's calling, probably C tier. I'll put it like, it's probably a little bit above like these perks. It's probably worse than Spice from the Shadows. Oh no, it's better. Basically, you can see the auras of survivors that are being healed within a certain range. It can be useful on killers like Nurse. It helps a lot with killers that can get across the map, like Nurse, Blight, Spirit. It doesn't really help with slower moving killers. It can help with like killers like Ghostface and Pig, so that you can sneak up to them. But it's not as good as some other perks. Even if you can see them, they can still just run away when they hear your terror radius. So it doesn't give guaranteed value. And so yeah, I think it's down here. All right, Strider. Strider's a bad perk. I think it increases like grunts of pain or whatever. It might be good after Iron Will got buffed a bit. It's probably better than like these perks now, just because of Iron Will. It's better than these perks. I wouldn't say it's better than those two though. Yeah, that's all it does. It just increases like noises from survivors. Moving on with Thanatophobia. It only gets value on Legion and Plague, pretty much. And even then, it doesn't give too much value. I'll put it like here. Because 20% slowdown on everything, it's something at least, but you do need all 4 survivors injured, which is really hard with basically any other killer but Legion and Plague, so I'll put it there. Dying Light. Dying Light's a terrible perk. Yeah, it's probably here. Basically, it only gives a 3% decrease to action speeds every hook. So every hook you get a 3% decrease action speeds, which means you need to basically hook like 5 survivors to get any noticeable value. And by that time, you would have already won the game if you have 5 hooks. Like 5 hooks already, you're already pretty much going to win. Now, towards the last gen, this can be useful, but the reason that this perk is down here, because, I mean, you know, it is slowdown, right? At least it's something, but the reason it's down here is because it buffs the survivors. The obsession isn't affected by it at all. If the obsession dies, then the stacks go away, and it increases their action speeds of healing and blessing totems by 33%, and unhooking. So basically, the obsession can unhook straight in front of you without you being able to hit them. Usually you'd be able to hit them so that they like cancel the unhook and then you can hit them again. But with this perk, it actually makes that impossible and it increases the healing speed. So yeah, it's a detriment pretty much most of the time. Moving on is play with your food. The actual effect of play with your food is really good because it gives you free haste if you leave a survivor, but that is the exact problem. You have to leave chase with the obsession, which is one specific survivor, in order to get value from this perk. But when it actually activates, it's pretty good, and it does give you a lot of distance. And yeah, I think it might be, no, it is better than those perks. By the way, I moved No One Escapes Death up to A+, and I moved Thrill of the Hunt a little bit up because I think those 2 perks are better than I thought. So yeah. It's okay. Yeah, play with your food's okay. Moving on is Save the Best for Last. It got nerfed, so special attacks also get rid of stacks, and it's not as much of a cooldown reduce. I still think it's decent though. It's better than those perks. I'm gonna put Tinker above Enduring. I think Save the Best for Last is I'll put Save the Best for Last right there. It can still get value. It used to be a really, really good perk. Now I think it's decent, although it did lose synergy with specific killers. And it's a lot easier to lose stacks, and you don't get as much of a cooldown reduce. It also, you need to build up stacks over time, so... but once you actually get those 8 stacks, it does mean that you can catch up to survivors really quick. But the reason Enduring's better is because it works every single time, whereas this you have to build it up. But once this effect does build up to at least 6 stacks, it's actually really strong. So yeah, I'll put Save the Best for Last there. Next is Devour Hope. Devour Hope is literally the most mid perk ever because it either gets heaps of value or no value at all. I think overall though it's C+. I think it gets cleanse more than it doesn't. So I'll put it there. Basically, if you get to 5 stacks before the totem gets cleansed, you can Mori every survivor out of the game. So it's really strong if you get those stacks, but it's really hard to reach that. You need to get downs really quick at the start of the game. So it's good on high mobility killers, but on weaker killers, it's not so good. You also usually need to run it with Undying or Thrill of the Hunt. So yeah, I think it's okay, but it's doesn't. I will put it actually like here. It can be extremely good if you get those stacks. So yeah, that's why it's there. It wins you games, completely wins you games single-handedly. So yeah, moving on is Hex Ruin. Hex Ruin is probably, I mean, after all the nerfs to gen regression, I mean, it's probably like here, because at least it does regress the gens. It's only 100%. Regression, not 200% like it was, but they did get buffed recently, so once a survivor does die, it doesn't disable like it used to, which is a buff, and it can help. You can pair it with other hex perks like Pentimento to get a lot of slowdown, and it's probably more in meta now just because of how much of the slowdowns have gotten nerfed. So yeah, I think it is probably C+ in total, because at the end of the day, it is still a hex perk, and it's only 100%, so it's not super fast regression. Okay, so next up, we have Hex the Third Seal. Hex the Third Seal is quite a bad perk, because the thing is, blindness isn't that strong of an effect. All blindness does is make it so that you can't see auras, which isn't that good, so yeah, I'll probably put it like C, because I mean, I don't know, it is like permanent blindness until they cleanse the totem. You do need to hit survivors though, which means you need to hit multiple survivors before it's cleansed, so whatever, I'll put it like bottom of C. Yeah, I mean, it's better than these perks at least, so yeah, I'll put it here. Quite a boring perk. Alright, moving on is Monitor and Abuse. So after the buff to FOV, it no longer gives FOV. All it does is it decreases your tear radius by 8 meters, I think, which isn't like that bad. It's definitely better than like probably all of those perks, because 8 meters, it does mean that the survivors get less of a runaway, which does mean more distance. So it is like, it does get value, but it's just like not that much value. It's like, it's okay. It could be good to run on killers that already have lower tear radiuses like Michael Myers, but yeah. We'll put Monitor and Abuse here. Okay, moving on is Overcharge. Overcharge is actually pretty good, especially after the nerfs to all the perks. I would say it's... I mean, it depends, because like good survivors will hit the skill checks of the Overcharge. But bad survivors might miss them. The regression that it gets isn't really good anymore. It used to be good, but then they nerfed it, so it's like 130%, I think, after like 30 seconds, which basically means the regression doesn't do much, and it starts off being worse than normal regression. But yeah, the skill check miss could get some value, so I think overall it's more consistent than Devour Hope, but I think that like survivors can still hit the skill check, and you do need to kick a generator, which means you're like wasting time instead of chasing survivors. So I'll put it here. I think Save the Best for Last is a little bit better, but I think Overcharge is like a solid perk, because if they do miss that skill check, that is 14% off gen, which is quite a lot, because there isn't a lot of perks that can do that much anymore. So I will put it here. It is solid. Yeah, I think it's okay. It could go down to C, but I'll put it here for now. All right, Overwhelming Presence. Yeah, so Overwhelming Presence increases the or decreases the efficiency of items, which means that it depletes faster. So if like some survivor was using a medkit in your tear radius, it would decrease faster. Like they probably wouldn't be able to get a full heal off, which is actually pretty good. And also their toolbox is less. I think this perk is okay. I'll probably put it like here, because survivors won't always have an item like that. It doesn't work on keys or maps or anything. Oh, does it work on maps? It probably does, right? Yeah, I would say it's like probably better than some of these. I'd probably put it like here. I think it actually is like a solid perk. It can get value, because that's pretty good. That means that toolboxes are also reduced in their efficiency, which means they'll deplete faster. So yeah, I think it's pretty good. It's better than all of the perks below here. So yeah, I think it's okay. Beast of Prey. Beast of Prey, I think what it does... Oh, is that Territorial Imperative? No, no, this is Beast of Prey. So when you're in a chase and you reach Bloodlust, I think it's 2, you get Undetectable. It's really bad. At least it's not a detriment. It's a little bit above Dying Light, but it's really bad though. The reason... Oh, it's probably a little bit worse than Dying Light even. Basically, whenever you're in chase, you don't need undetectable. I guess like it could hide your red stain, but you can do that anyways, and it's not as good as some other perks. So yeah, I would say it is a little bit better than Dying Light. It's probably also better than this one, but it's still a really bad perk though. That doesn't really do much. Moving on is Huntress Lullaby. This is a hex perk. It can be useful, but usually even at 5 stacks, the skill checks can be hit. It's one of the only hexes where you can actually ignore it and you will sometimes be fine. I'd probably put it in D tier, probably around here, because the skill checks can be missed, especially if you run like other perks with it that make skill checks harder, and maybe like on Doctor it could be good if you use Impossible skill check, but it is a hex totem that can be cleansed. You need to hook 5 survivors to get like the actual good value out of it. So yeah, I think it's overall like D tier, but it's better than all these perks because at its max potential it can be pretty good. Moving on, we have Territorial Imperative. This, I mean, it's gotten a little bit more useful because of the invocation perks that have been added, but even then, it's still like a bad perk. I'd probably put it like here. It's the best F tier perk because pretty much you never need to know if a survivor goes into the basement, and there's no reason for survivors to go into the basement unless they're cleansing a totem. Unless they're doing an invocation or like trying to open the chest, which means that they're not doing anything anyways, so it doesn't matter. The only time this could be useful, even though it probably wouldn't be anyways, if they are camping the basement. If you're trying to camp the basement, but even then you would usually be on the top of the basement steps, which means you'd see them go down anyways. So yeah, moving on, we have Barbecue and Chili. Barbecue and Chili is a pretty good information perk. It's actually really good in my opinion. Probably it gives a lot of value. Now Distortion does counter it, and Distortion is quite a common perk, so that will have a bit of a say in this. I'll put it here because you can actually find survivors really easily and it works on every hook. It doesn't work if the survivors are closer to you, but if they're closer to you, that means that you get information anyways that they're not on a far gen, so you can like pressure gens around you instead. So yeah, this does give a lot of value, and it works on every hook, which means you'll basically know where every survivor is as soon as you hook someone. And when you hook someone, that is the time where you're gonna want to know where the survivors are the most, because you want to try and find someone else. So yeah, I think it is there. It's a good perk. Moving on is Franklin's Demise. It's okay. The usefulness of it's probably not as useful as these perks. I'll put it like here. It is decent. It does mean that survivors won't be able to use those items most of the time because they'll be depleted. It counters medkits, which is decent. Yeah, it might be a little bit better than Sloppy Butcher, actually. Yeah, I don't think it's better than Brutal Strength, but it is like an okay perk. Like it can get value, but they have to bring items, and sometimes it doesn't get as much value as some other perks that you could be bringing. So yeah, I'll put it there. Moving on is Knockout. Knockout is probably a C tier perk. It's really good if you're like wanting to actually slug survivors, but it does get countered by SWF. I'll probably put it it's probably a little bit better than Third Seal, but it's not that good because slugging doesn't always work, and also it needs to be a basic attack, but it is really hard to find the survivor slugged if you're not playing in a Swift. So I'll put it like here. It's probably better than, I would say it's better than most of these perks here. Yeah, so yeah, I think it's there. The third cell might be a little bit better. Okay, moving on is Blood Warden. Blood Warden is, yeah, nah, Blood Warden's like very situational. If it does work, it's okay. I'll probably put it C tier. Maybe, probably there. Yeah. When you hook a survivor and the exit gates are open, the exit gates get blocked, which means that you can get a lot of value. But there's another perk which I'll get into, which is basically a way better version of this perk. So, you know, I'll put it there. I mean, it can get value, but it's quite situational. But the value you do get is quite big if it does. I'll probably put it like here. Yeah, that's where I'll put it. Okay, moving on is Fire Up. Fire Up is probably like here. The stacks that you get, it means that you have to lose gens in order to get these stacks, and the stacks don't really help too much. You can just bring Brutal Strength if you want the extra break speed, or Bamboozle if you want the Volt speed. This basically is just a weaker version of a bunch of other perks. So I mean, it's not like terrible, but it doesn't give much value. Like, you may as well just bring like Brutal Strength if you want the extra break speed. So I don't know, it might be above Shadow Blonde because it's not situational. Like, you'll get value out of it basically every game, and it does increase your pickup speed, which means flashlighting will be harder. But yeah, I still think it's not that great. Moving on, we have Remember Me. Remember Me is a good perk. Yeah, it's actually a really good perk. I'll probably put it like here. Basically, it increases the time that the exit gates take to open every time you hit your obsession. So it encourages tunneling, which is the best strategy in the game. So I do think it is a good perk. It also buys a lot of time at the exit gates, and if you run No Way Out with this perk, it's really good. No Way Out's just a better version of Remember Me, but Remember Me is still a good perk though. If No Way Out didn't exist, I'd probably put it like A tier. So yeah, it's a good perk. Buys a lot of time. Also, unlike No Way Out, they can't wait it out, so they have to like actually be physically on the gates. Yeah, I'll put it could go up to A tier, but I'll put it in, yeah, I might put it bottom of A tier, because also you don't need to hook every survivor for it to activate. You only need to injure the obsession 4 times, which isn't super hard. I'll put it A tier, yeah, bottom of A tier, because it's easy to get and it gets guaranteed value. It's actually a lot harder to open the exit gates. The obsession doesn't get affected by it, but if you kill the obsession before the end game, it's really good. So yeah, I'll put it there. That's probably a bit, could be controversial, but I don't think so. I think it's like, because of all of the nerfs that the gen aggression perks have been getting, I think that this is quite a solid perk now. Make your choice. Make your choice is probably like the bottom of C tier, because it can give value. Like, if you hook someone, go away, and then someone unhooks, they become exposed. So you can actually get a free down, depending on the killer, which is good. So I think that because of the fact that you can just get an insta down potentially, I think it is okay. But again, it's quite situational, and usually you'd want to tunnel the person off the hook. You wouldn't want to hit the other survivor. But yeah, it does mean that you can kind of like insta down them and then go after that other survivor. So I don't think it's a terrible perk. It's okay. Hangman's Trick. Oh yeah, this is terrible. This doesn't really do anything. I'll put it like there. So it's a Scourge Hook perk now, and they made it even worse. Basically, you can see if a survivor's around a Scourge Hook, I'm pretty sure. Or like if they're saboing it, it's something like that. So it doesn't really help with that though. It's supposed to help with knowing that a survivor's sabotaging a hook. But you can see that anyways. Like, you'd be able to see that a survivor's sabotaging a hook. In most situations. Like, this is so situational that it's basically useless. The only time this would ever get value is if a survivor was sabotaging a hook behind like a wall and you couldn't see it. That's the only time, and I don't think that's really ever going to happen. So yeah, I do think it's here, but at least it's like a little bit better than these. I might make a row below and like literally just call it Detriment. Surveillance. Surveillance is quite a good perk. It gives some good information. And yeah, I think what it does is if a gen starts regressing, you can see if it's if the gen is regressing, you can see if survivors get back on that gen, so you can go over to it and apply pressure to them. It synergizes with a lot of slowdown perks, and but yeah, it doesn't work super well on its own. It's better with other perks, but it is like solid, like it's pretty good information. There are better information perks than this, but yeah, it's good. Bamboozle. Bamboozle's actually a really good chase perk. I'll probably put it like, because it's guaranteed value, I'll put it here. Basically, it's probably better than save the best for last now. Yeah, so if you vault a window, it gets blocked, and your vault speed's increased. It's really well if it's really good if you use it with Dark Arrogance or Superior Anatomy. So it's good. It shuts down loops. It really helps with killers like Bubba and Hillbilly because they get countered by windows. And it's basically good on every killer though. So yeah, the killers that it's not good on, they don't need it anyways. So yeah. Colrophobia. This increases like skill checks of like healing. It makes healing harder pretty much. It's like, it's probably D tier. I'll put it like here because like it can help if it's like synergized with other perks, but it doesn't do too much on its own. It doesn't really do anything on its own because the skill checks can be hit, and yeah, I'll put it here. Yeah, I don't know, it's not very good. I might put Huntress above Thanatophobia. Alright, Pop Goes the Weasel. Pop Goes the Weasel was nerfed. It's still okay though, like, because just of how bad the slowdowns are now. I'll probably put it like, it's probably a little bit better than Ruin. Yeah, I'll put it like here. Basically, yeah, when you hook a survivor for 60 seconds, any generator you kick will lose 20% of its current progress. So it doesn't do too much anymore. It used to be 30%, which was actually like okay, but now it's only 20%. So it did get bumped down a little bit, but it is guaranteed generator regression, which is, you know, always good. But overcharge, for example, doesn't require you to hook anyone, and it loses 14%. They do have to miss a skill check though. I might actually put Pop. Pop might be a little bit better than Overcharge, but that's as far as it goes now. Okay, moving on is Haunted Grounds. It's once again kind of situational, but survivors will almost always cleanse this perk because they might think you have Devour Hope. So I think it's C tier. I think it's probably like there. It can be good. Because basically when they cleanse the totem, everyone becomes insta-down for a certain amount of time. I think it's a bit better than Make Your Choice because it only works when you unhook, whereas this works once the survivors have cleansed a totem, which means they were wasting time finding the totem, and then you can down everyone. So yeah, I'll put it here. Rancor. Rancor, you can Mori the survivor out of the game, your obsession at the end game, and it gives you information on gens, I think. It's actually quite good. It does give you information when survivors cleanse, and if you tunnel out someone and then you Mori the obsession at endgame, if you are running other perks like No Way Out and Remember Me, you can actually win games just by using this perk. So yeah, I think it's probably bottom of C+, because it isn't like super good. It doesn't give like really good value, but if paired with other perks, it can be really good. So yeah. Spirit Fury. I think Spirit Fury is C+, probably the bottom of C+. It's only good if you run it with Enduring. If you're not running it with Enduring, then the stun is too long and they'll make it to something else. So yeah, it's good, but only if you're running it with another perk. So that's why it's here. And it does instantly break the pallet, which I mean, I guess it's okay. I might put it C just because it needs to be run with Enduring, but it's the best C perk. Okay, moving on, and also the tier 1 and tier 2 are really bad of this perk, and you need to break 2 pallets before this activates, so it is a bit of a hefty activation process, but yeah, once again, it's really good with Enduring. Discordance. Discordance is B tier. It's actually a really good information perk. You can see if multiple survivors are repairing a generator, which is definitely the gen you want to be going to. It's really good. It's probably one of the best information perks in the game, if not the best now, after Ultimate Weapon got nerfed. So yeah, it's underrated. It's really an underrated perk. It's great. It also really helps after hooking someone like barbecue and chili, because you can see where they are, and unlike barbecue and chili, it doesn't get counted by distortion or any perk like that. There's no perk that counters discordance. For that reason, I might put discordance above barbecue and chili, and I think it's probably better than Devour Hope. I'll put both of them above Devour Hope. Iron Maiden isn't really that good. It's very situational. I think it's better than, it's probably like around here, because if they do get out of a locker, you do get an insta down, but survivors don't really go into lockers, and even if they do, you wouldn't know that they did, because they won't like pop out right in front of you. It also increases locker opening speeds, which is basically useless unless you're using Huntress or Trickster. So that's why, you know, Huntresses and Tricksters do run this perk sometimes, but I think after the buffs to the locker searching, I don't think it's really that good on them either. It's probably better than these though. I think it's probably the top of D tier. It's it can get value, but it's not very good. Mad Grit is I mean, it's okay. It's once again just a worse agitation. It's good if paired with agitation. I'd probably put it like I don't know. It can get like a lot of value if used right, and none of these perks here really do. Might put Huntress Lullaby a little bit up, probably like there. Yeah, Mad Grit, it's okay. Basically, you can swing really fast when you're M1ing while picking up a survivor. But it's not really that good, because Agitation's a better version, and usually you wouldn't be able to hit the survivor anyways, unless they were trying to sabotage the hook. So I'll probably put it there, but it is better than these perks. Corrupt Intervention. This is probably, yeah, this is S tier. It's one of the best perks in the game at the moment. It blocks the 3 generators the furthest away from you at the start of the game for 120 seconds. This means that the survivors cannot be repairing those generators, which means they have to go towards you at the start of the game. Basically, Corrupt Intervention nearly guarantees a good early game. So survivors can go to the gens that are the closest to you, but if they do that, then you're guaranteed to have a quick chase, and they won't be able to get that progress, which means you can apply other slowdowns quicker and basically make those slowdowns work. Because, for example, if they get straight on a gen at the start of the game, you need to chase them off that gen, and then there'll be other survivors on other gens, and it just becomes like a nightmare early game, and you won't be able to apply other gen aggressions like Pain Resonance, Eruption, etc. So yeah, it's really good. It's really good on specific killers as well. So yeah, I think it's just great. It's not like super good on killers that get downs quickly, because it does deactivate once someone gets a down. But yeah, if it's not S, then it's the top of A+. I might put it at the top of A+ for now. I think there are a few better perks than Corrupt Intervention. So yeah, we'll put it at top of A+ for now. Dark Devotion. I think this gives undetectable, and it like makes your terror radius onto a survivor. I don't know, it's a weird perk, and it doesn't really do too much. I'll probably put it like here. It can help, but it's very situational, so yeah, it's not very good. Infectious Fright is probably, it's good for like slugging, but I don't know, I think it's also a D tier perk. Probably worse than Fire Up. Oh, is it worse than Fire Up? No, I would say it's probably here. Maybe it's probably better than Iron Maiden. I think Iron Maiden should go down a little bit. Probably like to here. Maybe to here. Nah, I think it's a bit better than Huntress. Okay, Furtive Chase. I think this perk isn't too bad anymore. Yeah, so each time you hook the obsession, for 18 seconds, you get the undetectable status effects, and you get 5% haste. And whenever the obsession is rescued from a hook, their rescuer will become the obsession. So this is actually a decent perk because it guarantees undetectable. It probably has good synergy with barbecue and chili and discordance. It's probably like around here. But yeah, I do think the furtive chase is a pretty solid perk because it would pair well with barbecue and chili and discordance. Yeah, I'll probably put it around here. I think play with your... oh no, I think this is probably better than play with your food. I think Lightborn's a little bit better than it as well. So yeah. Lightborn could actually go down a little bit. Not too much though. I think it's actually a pretty underrated perk, especially if there's heaps of flashlights and there are situations where you just cannot pick up the survivor. So I'm All Ears is an okay perk. Basically, when a survivor vaults a window close to you, you can see their aura for a certain amount of time, and they've also reduced the cooldown in the most recent patch. So I actually do think that I'm All Ears is a decent perk. It's probably... I would say it's better than Spies from the Shadows and that one. I'll probably put it right around here. I think that is a good spot for it. It is a very solid information perk now. It always kind of has been. It's quite an underrated perk, especially on killers like Nurse. It's really good on those killers. Killers with mobility that can traverse around a loop quickly. It's also good with Pyramid Head. So yeah. Moving on is Thrilling Tremors. Thrilling Tremors is a really good perk. It is probably... I don't know if it's better than barbecue and chili because the information, basically the information that it gets cannot be counted by any perk. It can't be counted by like distortion or calm spirit or anything like that. And it shows you exactly what generators are being worked on. Plus it gives you a little bit of slowdown. So it does have a cooldown, but I think it's better than barbecue and chili. And I do think it's also better than discordance. I'm going to put barbecue and chili above discordance as well. And I may also put Devour Hope a little bit further down. I'll just put it down to there for now. But yeah, I think that Thrilling Tremors is a very solid perk. You get lots of information. If you run perks like Dead Man Switch and Pain Resonance, or like perks that can affect gens afterwards, you can also synergize a lot of perks with this. You can like Pop Goes the Weasel gen, or you know, this perk's really good on killers like Artist, Freddy, any killers that can like teleport to gens or like affect gens in any way. So yeah, it's a good perk, underrated, definitely. Moving on is Claustrophobia. This blocks vault locations. I think it's called Cruel Limits now. Okay, no, so it's whenever a generator is completed, it blocks all vault locations, and it is called Cruel Limits. So yeah, this is like okay. That is like decent. It's throughout the whole map. I know it used to be only in a specific range. It's probably here, I would say. It might be a little bit better than Knockout. And yeah, Iron Grasp. It might be a little bit better than some of these perks. I'll put it around here. I think it's actually like not that bad of a perk. That's pretty good effect. If you're in a chase, when a gen gets completed, that basically means that they cannot vault any windows for quite a while. So I actually do think that is quite solid. I'll put it around there, yeah. Moving on is Mindbreaker. Mindbreaker is actually really good at the moment because of the fact that the meta revolves around exhaustion perks. So I do actually think Mindbreaker is extremely high. I'll probably put it in B tier. I think it is probably better than Thrilling Tremors. It's better than Overcharge. I think it's probably around there. It's really good because one really good thing is they cannot sprint burst away. When you catch them on a gen, they can't see where you're hooking a survivor or where you downed a survivor while they're on the gen as well, and they can't use perks like Lithe or Made for This or like Smash Hit or like anything like that. So yeah, I think it's a really solid perk and it gets very consistent value. It may be a little bit below. I'm going to put it at the bottom of B tier for now, but I might move it up. But it is a really good perk, especially since lots of people run exhaustion perks. Okay, moving on is Surge. Surge is also a B tier perk. When you down a survivor with a basic attack, every generator explodes and loses 8% progress. So this can actually help because you can get a down, then quickly hook them and go to that gen. 8% may not be enough to get to that gen in time, but it is still good because it is regression, and a lot of the regression perks got nerfed anyways. So I'll put Surge... I'll probably put Surge here. It is probably not as good as Overcharge because Overcharge is 14% and you apply it rather than getting it after a down. Maybe I will move Overcharge. Actually, yeah, maybe I will move Overcharge down a little bit. I think it's a little bit better than... Actually, I don't think it's better than Surge because Surge is instant guaranteed regression, whereas this, they need to miss the skill check. So I'll put Overcharge here, and I'll put Surge probably around here. Yep. Okay, moving on. This is, I believe, Blood Echo. Yes, so when hooking a survivor, all other survivors who are injured suffer from hemorrhage and exhausted for 45 seconds. So that is quite a specific circumstance, and it has a cooldown of 60 seconds. Hemorrhage isn't that strong. Exhausted also isn't really. You're better to probably just run like Mindbreaker. I am a little bit sketched about this one. It's probably like even D tier because it's just so specific. Like the survivor has to be injured after you hook them, and then they get it for a certain amount of time, and it has a cooldown. So yeah, that's not a very good perk. I would say it's probably around here. It's like shy of being useless, but not quite. Because the thing is, hemorrhage isn't that strong of an effect either. If it was maybe mangled, it could be good. But yeah, hemorrhage isn't that strong. Exhausted is good, but it's only for 45 seconds, and they need to be injured once again. So I'll put it down here for now. Yeah, I think it would only be good on some killers. I think it is better than Iron Maiden. I'm going to move Iron Maiden down a little bit, probably to here. It's not better than Fire Up. I think it is a little bit better than Huntress Lullaby, though. I'll put it here. So Nemesis, anytime a survivor blinds you or stuns you with a pellet or locker, you become the that survivor becomes the obsession. And anytime the obsession switches to another survivor, that survivor then suffers from the oblivious status effect. So you need to be stunned in order for this perk to work. Which does mean it's a bit of a, like, you have to do something bad to get value from it. And the effect isn't too strong. It's oblivious for 60 seconds when the obsession switches to that survivor. But you're in chase with them when they're oblivious. I don't know. It's not, like, terrible. I think it's probably better than all these perks here. I'll probably put it around there. I think, like, it can get value because if you are in chase with that obsession, they can't see your red stain when they're oblivious. Yeah, so I think that Nemesis is actually probably D tier. I think it's probably around here because it isn't really that strong of an effect. I think it's worse than Fire Up even. It's probably a little bit better than Blood Echo. Maybe not. I'll probably put it like here. Yeah, it's quite a bad perk. Okay, moving on is Zanchan Tactics. This is pretty much useless. I know that once again, I think Aranad said that this was like a really good perk on Clown. That's the only thing I know of this perk really, and yeah, so it shows you like windows and pallets. Like it shows you the auras of windows and pallets. It's kind of like windows of opportunity for killer, but it's a bad perk because you don't really need to see those as killer. So I'll put it I think it's probably better than some of these. I'm gonna put Monstrous Shrine here. But yeah, Zanchan Tactics probably, I'll probably put it here because I guess like having that information could be useful sometimes. Like at least it's not useless like these perks, but yeah, it's not a strong effect at all. Yeah, it's probably a little bit better than Thanatophobia. I'll put it there. Okay, moving on is Dead Man Switch. This is a really good perk, especially after like all the nerfs to generators. Yeah, Dead Man Switch is really good. Whenever you hook a survivor for 30 seconds, if a survivor gets off a generator, it gets blocked for the remaining duration. So I think that it is on par with these perks. It's actually really strong. Because you can use other perks like Pain Resonance, like Thrilling Tremors, so you know what gen to go to. You know, there's a few perks that synergize really well with it. And yeah, I do think it is a really good perk. It buys a lot of time. It works on every single hook, which is really good. There are some perks like Pain Resonance that only works on some hooks. But it's not as strong of an effect because it is just blocking the gen. Like the progress stays, so they can go and do something else while it's blocked. But it is still a really good perk, especially after the nerfs to all the regression perks. So yeah. It may be a little bit better than Remember Me. Okay, moving on is Gearhead. I think this is whenever you hit a survivor, auras of survivors doing good skill checks are revealed to you. It's decent information. That's not like terrible, but they need to be in a certain range, so it is kind of situational. So I'll put it like here. Maybe a little bit worse than Lightborn. I'll put it around here. Okay, moving on is Hex Retribution. This is when they cleanse the Hex Totem. All survivors get revealed for a duration. So it's only a one-time duration, like a one-time aura read, and it is a Hex perk, so, you know, it goes away. And it becomes a dead perk slot, so it's probably a little bit worse than Haunted Grounds. I might put Haunted Grounds above, like, some of these, because it is Snowball. I'll put it like... Yeah, I think it is a lot better than I thought. I'll put it here. Retribution is probably around here. Because, I mean, the aura reading can help if you're a high mobility killer, but it won't really help with killers that are slow. So yeah, I think it's okay, but it's not like better than some other perks. Okay, moving on is Deathbound. Whenever a survivor heals another survivor for 1 health state at least 32 meters away from you, it activates. It causes the survivor to scream and trigger a loud noise notification, and for 60 seconds the survivor suffers from the Oblivious status effect. So I don't think that's terrible, because it does give you information, but they do need to be 32 meters away from you, and Oblivious isn't that good. There's a lot of specific circumstances, like how they need to be farther than 8 meters from the healed survivor. So I'll put it, I do think it's better than all these perks, so I'll put it at like the bottom of C tier, because I do think that can be good, but it's kind of situational. Okay, moving on is Force Penance. This applies Broken if a survivor tries to body block for someone for 60 seconds. So this is actually a really good perk, especially against SWFs. It's one of the only perks that is good against SWFs and bad against solo queues, because solo queues aren't going to go for body blocks usually. They sometimes do, but it's not common. So I will actually put Force Penance in C tier. It is probably around, because it doesn't always get value. So I'll put it around here. I think it's like, it can be solid, but it is situational because they do need to go for body blocks. But if they do, you're going to notice that you're going to be able to get the survivor that you're trying to kill out of the game really fast. It's kind of a tunneling perk in a way. So yeah, I think it's decent, but it's not better than some other perks. Okay, moving on is Trail of Torment. This is when you kick a gen, you become undetectable until the generator stops regressing. So this is like a worse version of Unforeseen, but in the recent patch, it did get buffed a little bit. And it is a good perk. So I will put it like, it is actually quite solid. I would say it's better than Furtive Chase. I will probably put it... It could even be in the bottom of C+. Because it is like really good, especially if you use it with other perks to get the value. If you use it with like Pop Goes the Weasel, Eruption, Overcharge, you know, stuff like that. It synergizes really well with them, and you can get a lot of regression over time as well if they don't go back to it. So yeah, I think it's good. You can probably get a lot of free hits with it. It's just that Unforeseen is just a better version of it. But anyways, moving on is Dragon's Grip. This is one of the perks that got buffed in the recent patch. Now it's a cooldown of 40 seconds. I do think it's better than before, so I'll put it in... It's probably better than some of these, but I think it is a little bit of a bad perk still, because you do need to go back to that gen after their aura is revealed, and you might lose the survivor before you get back there. So it doesn't always give value, but if it does, it does give really fast downs. But it also only works if they basic attack. So yeah, but I do think it's better than all these perks. So I'll put it here. It's basically applies exposed if a survivor goes back to that gen and touches it in any way. So yeah, I'll put it here. And it also has a much less cooldown than it used to. It's like 40 seconds instead of 80. Okay, moving on is Blood Favor. This is a really good perk because it is a hex, but unlike some of the other hexes, it is active at the very start of the game. What it does is when you hit a survivor by any means, all pallets are blocked within a certain range, and it's quite a long range as well. I think it's probably around here, just because it's a hex, but it's so good, because the thing is, pallets are the most powerful tools, alright? They can still vault windows, but pallets are the best tools for them to escape in the game. And it blocks every single pallet, which means you're going to get a lot of free hits, especially at the start of the game. Even if it gets cleansed fast, your first or second chase is going to be really good, so it is a really good early game perk. So yeah, I think it's around here. I'm going to put Overcharge at top of C+, just because I think it isn't guaranteed regression. So I'll put it here. But yeah, Blood Favor is really good. Okay, moving on is Undying. This gives 2 lives to your Hex Totems, and it also reveals auras if survivors are near Dole or Hex Totems. This is also a really good Hex. Giving 2 lives to your Hex Totems is really huge, especially if you combine it with, like, Devour Hope. I think since it's only really good if you bring it with another perk. So I do think it's a little bit worse than Blood Favor, but it definitely is B tier, because giving 2 lives to your Hex Totems is just huge. Like, that is a really good perk. Okay, moving on is Coup de Grace. This extends your lunge by, like, quite a bit every time a generator gets completed, and you get 2 tokens to do this. This is probably one of the best chase perks in the game. I do think it's better than Bamboozle. It's probably better than Enduring. I think it's better than Tinker as well. It's not quite A tier, but it is... maybe it is, honestly. Because the thing is, these longer lunges will get you so many hits that you wouldn't have normally gotten, which can basically win you games. Bamboozle, you have to vault, which takes a while, and it has a specific, like, cooldown. Like, you have to vault and then you have to hit them. With this, you just immediately just swing and you can just hit them in, like, a lot of circumstances. It may go up to A tier, but I think because of the fact that not all killers can benefit from it, because some killers have, like, ranged attacks and stuff, I do think it is top of B tier. It's just really good on M1 killers, and definitely shouldn't be changed. Some people think it's overpowered, but I don't think it is. I think it's really good on M1 killers that really need that extra chase potential, so yeah. Moving on is Hoarder. This might be good after the new perk that came out, the one in the Lara Croft, where, like, when you ravage chests, you get tokens to, like, make gens faster. I still think it's quite a mediocre perk, because unless they're running that, or, like, you're running a very specific build, it's quite bad. So I'll put it, it's probably worse than Retribution. I think Retribution's a little bit too low. I'll put it, like, here. Also, Iron Grasp is a bit too high. Put it like here. But yeah, Hoarder is not a very good perk, but it can, yeah, I don't know, I think it's probably D tier, honestly, because, yeah, because of that new perk, it might get use, but unless they're running that perk, it's a useless perk. So yeah, I'll put it here. I think it's worse than all those, yeah. Okay, moving on is Oppression. This is another perk that got buffed in the recent patch. Its cooldown got reduced to 40 seconds. And basically what it does is when you kick a gen, 3 other generators start regressing, and if a survivor's working on one of those gens, they get a difficult skill check. I actually think it's C+. It's quite a good perk. But they can just hit the skill check. It's not super hard to hit the skill check, and 40 seconds is still a bit of a cooldown. But I think because of the potential of getting heaps of gen regression, like 10% off every gen for free, you don't even need to like down anyone or hook anyone. It's probably around... It might be better than Brutal Strength. It could even be better than Ruin, because Ruin is 100%. It's the same regression as this, but this is in a hex, and all you have to do is kick a gen. So I'll put it here. I'll put it right next to Overcharge. I think that because of all the nerfs to gen regression, it does actually see a lot more uses now. So yeah, I think it is probably here. It might even be better than Overcharge. It may even go to B at some point, but I don't think it's quite in the tier of these perks, so I'll put it here for now. I think if its cooldown got reduced even more, it would definitely be up in the B tier. Okay, moving on is Hex Crowd Control. This is pretty much Hex Blood Favor, except for Windows. And I think Windows are a little bit weaker. So I'll put it like probably around here. I think that it is really good, but Windows are a little bit weaker, so you will get hits. You can get hits from it, but pallets are still going to be an issue. I think if you ran both these together, that could be pretty interesting. I might actually, that would be a good thing to try. I've never tried that before, so but yeah, it's a good perk, but it's just not as good as Blood Favor. Moving on is No Way Out. This is probably, yeah, this is S tier. It's so good. Basically, every time you hook a survivor, you gain seconds of the exegates being blocked at the end of the game, up to a maximum of 60 seconds. So the exegates at the end of the game can be blocked for a full 60 seconds. And the thing is, the survivors have to touch the gates for this to affect. So basically, you're guaranteed to get like 70 seconds of them not being able to open the gates at endgame. That is huge. That means you can probably get a sacrifice. You can probably finish the chase that you're doing, and it can be massive. It can change the game around, especially if you have perks like No One Escapes Death and Remember Me. But the thing is, this works well on its own, right? No One Escapes Death has the penalty of it being a hex, and you can cleanse it. Remember Me isn't as much seconds, but this is 60 seconds, and they can't cleanse it or anything. They can't do anything about this. There is a bit of a thing, like you have to hook all 4 survivors once, but you don't have to do this, right? You still get at least 12 seconds of gen blocking time at the end game. So yeah, it gets value even if you don't hook anyone. But if you do hook people, if you even hook like 2, that is 30 seconds where the exegates cannot be opened. So yeah, it's S tier for sure, especially after all the nerf to other perks. Okay, moving on is Starstruck. Starstruck is okay. It is a little bit hard to get value out of, because they need to be within your terror radius when you're picking up a survivor, and you need to find them after that. It's probably around here, I would say. It can get value, but it doesn't get consistent value. I would say Blood Warden's a little bit lower. I'll put it like here, maybe below 3rd seal. But yeah, Starstruck is okay. It's just not very consistent. Okay, moving on is Eruption. Eruption is definitely up here. I think it is better than Surge. It's probably even better than Pop Goes the Weasel now. Basically, when you kick a generator, when you down a survivor, it loses 10%, like the generator loses 10% progress, and you see the auras of any survivors that were on the gen. So that gives you information, which is something that Surge doesn't really do. And also, Eruption works on any attack. It's not just basic attacks. It works on every single attack. Pop Goes the Weasel does 20%, but its current progression, this is total. This is like no matter what the generator's on, it will lose 10%, and you have to hook a survivor, whereas this activates as soon as you down them, which means this can save gens. So yeah, it's probably better than Save the Best for Last as well. I don't think it's quite better than Bamboozle, but it is a really good perk for sure. You can also apply this on multiple generators, and yeah, but it's It's good because of all the other perk nerfs once again, but you know, it's not quite up here. It used to be up here when it applied incapacitated for 25 seconds. That was like ridiculous. That was like S tier, but yeah. Okay, moving on is Hysteria. Hysteria, whenever you put a healthy survivor into the injured state, all injured survivors suffer from the Oblivious status effect. So once again, this is a little bit like that other perk that applied Oblivious. It's not that good because it's situational, and the survivors have to be injured, and then it goes on cooldown. But it is easier to activate than the other one. Yeah, it was Deathbound. So it's better than Deathbound. It's probably around here. It's not that good. It can get value, but I think that survivors will usually not be injured if you are chasing someone else. Most of them won't be, I feel like, and it's only 30 seconds. So after your chase, it'll probably have ran out. Yeah, I think I'll put Infectious Fright like here. I think it is actually decent because you can you get a lot of information with it if like someone's trying to flashlight. So I'll put it here. But yeah, I think Hysteria is there. Okay, moving on is Lethal Pursuer. This is at the start of the game, you see the auras of all survivors, and it extends the duration of other aura reading perks. So this is a good perk, but it is very overrated in my opinion. I think it's probably around here. I think that seeing the survivors at the start of the game is good, but only if you're a high mobility killer. But it does give it a lot of information, and it guarantees a decent early game. So it is pretty good in that sense, and it also, yeah, extends the duration of other aura reading perks, which basically means it synergizes with a lot of perks. But I think that on its own, it's not really worth it. It's just a worse corrupt intervention. But you know, it's a good perk. It's just like there are better perks than it that you should be running instead. Okay, moving on is Deadlock. Deadlock is possibly the best perk in the game, even after the nerf. Got like nerfed by like 5 seconds, which didn't really do anything. All that really did, honestly, was make it synergize more with Pain Resonance, because there have been times where I just didn't quite make it because the gem was blocked with Deadlock, so I couldn't quite use Pain Resonance. But yeah, now I can hit most Pain Resonances after this. So yeah, I think Deadlock's the best perk in the game because it requires no activation. Like, you don't have to do anything to activate it. Basically, all it does is when one generator gets completed, the next most progressed gets blocked for 25 seconds. It's just free. It's literally completely free. This can be applied on 2 gens at once, and it means that they cannot do anything about that. They just have to wait out Deadlock, or they have to go and do something else. So it's just really good. There is no downsides to this whatsoever, so I think it is the best perk in the game. Alright, moving on is Hex Plaything. This is when you hook a survivor, there's a Hex totem that spawns, and it makes survivors oblivious when they until they cleanse that. So this is actually a really good perk because it can create up to 4 Hex totems, which means they have to do a lot of slowdown. Like, they have to waste a lot of time cleansing those totems, or else they just have no information on you. So I think it's probably better than some of these. I think it's a little bit better than Hex Ruin. I think that Overcharge and Oppression is still a little bit better, but actually, I don't know. Maybe it is better than these perks as well. It may even be B tier. I don't think it's quite B tier because Oblivious isn't quite as strong as like blocking pallets or giving 2 lives, and it also doesn't activate at the very start of the game. So yeah, I'll put it here, but it's really good. It gives slowdown on top of it, and you can bring perks like Pentimento so that when they do cleanse those 4 totems, you can get 4 Pentimento stacks, which is really good. So yeah, it also synergizes with a lot of Hex perks. Okay, moving on is Gift of Pain. Gift of Pain is kind of like a worse Sloppy Butcher. It does give 16% gen slowdown once they are healed. But yeah, basically, you also need to hook survivors on a Scorch Hook, right? So there's a lot of specific activation processes, but it's not a bad perk. I'll probably put it around here. I think it can get value, but it's not that good. I'll probably put it around here. Yeah, it is okay, but you do need to get to a Scourge Hook, and then the actual effect is basically a worse Sloppy Butcher, because with Sloppy Butcher, you just need to hit them. With this, you need to hook them on a Scourge Hook. So, yeah, and the 16% gen slowdown doesn't really do too much either. but it's something, right? At least it's generator slowdown, so it's okay. Okay, Grim Embrace. Grim Embrace is a very overrated perk as well. It even got nerfed recently by 2 seconds for some reason. But it is a perk that encourages 12 hooking, which isn't also that great. I would say it is probably a little bit better than Ruin, but I don't think it's better than Overcharge or Oppression. Basically, when you hook a survivor, once you exit the radius of the hook survivor, all gens are blocked for 10 seconds, and once you reach 4 stacks, all the gens are blocked for 40 seconds. So I do actually think this is probably better than Overcharge. I think that these two perks are a little bit better. This gives a bit more slowdown, and this also gives a bit more slowdown. But I think Grim Embrace is okay. It just has activation processes, which are kind of can be hard to activate. And it's only 10 seconds. Like when I'm on the survivor side, I don't really care about this perk. I'm just like, oh, Grim Embrace, I'll just wait like 2 seconds and I can just do it again. But it is generator slowdown. And I think that because of all the nerfs to gen regression, yeah, this is okay. This also doesn't give any information, unlike some other regression perks. Okay, so moving on is Hex Pentimento. Hex Pentimento is a perk that only works if you run other perks with it, but its effects are really strong. 1 stack, it will reduce repair speeds by 30%, which is really good. I will probably put it... I think it's a little bit worse than Grim Embrace, but it is like a really good perk though. The only problem is, yeah, once again, they have to actually cleanse other hex totems, and it can be cleansed itself. So there's just a lot of, like, there's a few downsides to it, and you're usually not going to be able to get any more than 1 stack if the survivors know what they're doing. So I think, yeah, it's decent. It might even be, it could be better than Grim Embrace potentially, because if you do run it with other hex perks, it can be really good. And, you know, maybe a little bit worse than Grim Embrace, but it is good. It's a good perk. If you run it with Plaything, for example, it's really good. So yeah, moving on is Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. I still think that this perk is an S tier. Even though it got nerfed by like 5%, which is something, and it has been just nerfed constantly over the years, but I think it's still S tier because of the lack of other perks. Basically, yeah, when you hook a survivor on a Scourge Hook, the most progressed gen loses 20%. This basically saves gens. It means that you can apply other perks like Dead Man Switch, like Pop Goes the Weasel, like Eruption. It synergizes with a bunch of perks. It even synergizes with Deadlock now, because if a gen's blocked, it doesn't regress. I mean, it doesn't like waste a Pain Resonance stack. I think it's a little bit worse than No Way Out though. I think No Way Out buys more time than Pain Resonance. There's also a lot of like, there's some RNG involved in Pain Resonance, like, you know, you might not make it to a Scourge Hook. But yeah, I think it's decent. And yeah, it's not just decent, it's a really good perk. But I think that some killers don't use it as well because they don't have the chase potential to like down survivors quickly, which is why I think No Way Out and Deadlock are better. Yeah, I could see the argument that it's here, but I think for now I'm gonna put it up here. So yeah, moving on is Call of Brine. This is quite a bad perk. I'll probably put it in like C because the information's okay, but it regresses by 125% when you kick a gen, pretty much. I think that it is worse than Infectious because, yeah, the regression is basically useless now. It used to be good when it was 200%, but it's not anymore. Like, it was probably B tier at 200%, but it's just, yeah, it's got nerfed into the ground. The information's okay. When they hit good skill checks, you can see, like, notifications, but I think it's, yeah, it's just a bad perk because there are better information perks than Call of Brine for sure. I don't think it's, yeah, because of the information, I think it's a little bit better than Iron Grasp, but that's as far as it goes. So yeah, moving on is Merciless Storm. Merciless Storm is, it doesn't always give value because sometimes survivors can just hit the skill checks and it's not that hard to hit the skill checks. Yeah, if it does activate, it's quite good though. I'll probably put it around here. I think that it can get value, but if the survivors know what they're doing and they just hit the skill checks, it's not that hard. Yeah, I'll probably put it around here because it is gen slowdown at the end of the day, but it's just quite weak gen slowdown, so... Okay, moving on is Scorchhook Floods of Rage. This is another Scorchhook perk. When you hook a survivor on a Scorchhook and then they get unhooked, you can see the auras of all survivors. So this is actually a good information perk. I'll probably put it around here because it does give a lot of decent information, probably above Hex Ruin. But the thing is, I mean, aura reading isn't like super strong. If they have distortion, obviously it gets counted, and you have to hook them on a Scorchhook. So that is another RNG. But if the effect does play out, it's like around B tier. So yeah, I'll put it in C+, in like the middle of C+. I think that's a good place to put it. Okay, moving on is Darkness Revealed. So when you search a locker, the auras of survivors within the range of a locker get revealed for like 8 seconds. It got buffed in the PTB, the recent PTB. It's actually a decent perk. It can get value, although you don't really want to be searching lockers because it wastes time. So I think it's probably worse than Gearhead. I think it's Sponge from Shadows is guaranteed or reading. I'll probably put it around here. I think that it can get value, but you don't really want to be searching lockers, and it's also not guaranteed that a survivor is going to be near a locker. So I don't know. I think it's okay. I think it's good on some killers like Trickster and Huntress that need to search lockers, but other than that, I think it's just a waste of time because you can find survivors pretty easily just by patrolling generators anyways. So yeah. Moving on is Dissolution. So when you injure a survivor near a pallet, if they vault the pallet, then the pallet breaks immediately. It is actually a decent perk. It does have a bit of a cooldown, and the activation is a bit long. But if it actually works, it's really good because you don't need to break the pallet. You can get very quick distance. You can get a lot of distance that you wouldn't have had. So I'll put it at the bottom of C+. I think it is probably... Yeah, it's better than Spirit Fury because you don't get stunned. It's just immediate. I actually will put it above some of these. Yeah, I think... I'll probably put it around there. It is a good chase perk, but it's not as good as some other chase perks because of the activation process and how it doesn't work every time, because if they are not near a pallet, it doesn't do anything. And also, if you're a killer that can just go over pallets, kind of like Nurse or like Blight, it doesn't do much, although it can do some stuff with Blight for sure, and Spirit. I think Nurse is the only killer that wouldn't benefit from this perk, so yeah, it's good. I would probably put it above Brutal Strength. Yeah, I'll probably put it around there even. It's actually really good. Maybe, honestly, I might even put it above Crowd Control. Yeah, I'll put it here. I think that's as far as it goes though. I mean, yeah, you could argue it's better than Ruin even. I'm gonna put it around here because, yeah, because of the RNG elements, and these other perks also have some RNG elements. So yeah, I think it's here. Okay, moving on is Septic Touch. So Septic Touch, whenever a survivor performs a healing action inside your terror radius, that survivor suffers from blindness and exhausted for 10 seconds. So that is... Nah, that's really bad because that's just such a short activation. Yeah, that's really bad actually, because blindness is useless, especially for 10 seconds. And yeah, they have to be interrupted as well. So yeah, this is like really bad. I'll probably put it... yeah, that's really bad. I think it's probably around here because at least it can do something, but like it's not very likely to do anything. Yeah, that's bad. Okay, moving on is Awakened Awareness. The auras of survivors within 20 meters of your location are revealed to you when you're carrying a survivor. So this can be good. It's pretty much a better version of Hangman's Trick. Plus, it also helps you find survivors like at endgame if you wanted to. I think it's probably overall like C tier. Probably like... it's not very good though. It's worse than like... It's probably a little bit better than Retribution. I think that's as far as it goes though. There are better aura reading perks, but it can get value in some circumstances. So yeah, I think it's okay. The aura reading when carrying a survivor means you can find survivors that are on gens, because 20 meters is quite far away. So yeah, I think it's okay. Maybe a little bit worse than Retribution, just because this is guaranteed aura reading everywhere. But yeah, I'll put it there. Okay, moving on is Superior Anatomy. This increases vault speed by 40% if a survivor vaults in front of you. Yeah, this is pretty good. Although that vault speed isn't enough unless you combine it with other perks like Bamboozle or Dark Arrogance. It's probably around here because it is a good chase perk, but it usually needs to be combined with something else to gain like really good value. And also it doesn't work on every killer because not every killer needs to vault windows. So yeah, I'll put it there. It's okay. It also has a bit of a cooldown, which does hurt it as well. So yeah, I think Dragon's Grip is probably up here actually. Yeah, it's probably better. Okay, next up is Terminus. Once the exit gates are powered, all survivors who are either injured, dying, or hooked suffer from the broken status effects until the gates are open. So this is kind of like a no one escapes death, but it isn't a hex, except you need to injure all survivors. So I think this perk could actually get a bit of value. I don't think it's that good because you need to injure all survivors by endgame, which is kind of a bad way of playing. You don't really want to be splitting pressure like that. So I'll put it... It's probably a bit better than Spice in the Shadows because it probably would get more value than that. Actually, maybe not. I'll put it here, I think. I think it's an okay perk, but it would get countered really hard by just medkits and just not playing stupid. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Moving on is Hex Face the Darkness. Okay, so Hex Face the Darkness, whenever you injure a survivor by any means, if there is still a dull totem remaining on the map, it lights and it causes all the other survivors to scream every 25 seconds if they're outside your terror radius. It's good information, but it is a hex. I think it's actually pretty good. It's probably not on the same tier as those though. I will put it above I'm All Ears. I think it's probably around there. It's a decent hex perk, but it does get countered by just simply cleansing it, and every 25 seconds is not like, it's not like constant aura reading, but it is definitely better than Retribution. So yeah, I'll put it there. It's good. Moving on is Hubris. When you get stunned by a pallet, the survivor becomes exposed for a certain amount. So this can be really good on specific killers with other perks, like maybe Enduring as well. I think Hubris is probably... I would say it's probably around here because you're not guaranteed to get that hit after you're stunned. But if you do, then that is a really quick down, which is good. But also not all killers can benefit from this because it does have to be a basic attack. So yeah, I think it's pretty good, but it's not like, not on the same level as these other perks. Next up is Nowhere to Hide. When you kick a gen, survivors around you are revealed. This is a really good information perk. I would say it's probably somewhere up here. I'll put it here because it can sometimes even give you a hit. Yeah, it could probably save a lot of time actually. Yeah, I think Nowhere to Hide is actually really high, because the thing is, you don't have to do anything. You just kick the gen and you can just see people around it, which means if anyone's trying to hide, which they usually do, when you get close, some survivors will play like that, you can see them. The only thing that counters this is distortion, but that's like, you know, they're not always running distortion, and the fact that this is just so easy to activate makes it better than like barbecue and chili. Discordance is also easy to activate, but 2 survivors have to be working on a gen. I think Discordance is a bit better than barbecue and chili actually, but yeah, Nowhere to Hide's a really good perk. I'll put it up there. Okay, next up is Game of Foots. Game of Foot's a really weird perk. So whenever you hit the survivor with the highest chase time with a basic attack, they become the obsession. And then while you're chasing the obsession and you kick a pallet, you are granted 5% haste. This also works well if you kick a generator or breakable wall, but that's basically never going to happen. This is a really bad perk unless you run it with other perks, but even then, I don't think it can really get much value from other perks. Maybe Rancor at like end game, so you can Mori every survivor. I think because of that, it's like, it's definitely I don't know about D tier. I think it probably is C tier, but it's like low C tier. I'll probably put it around there because I mean the haste is okay, but I think the main reason for this perk would be if you wanted to combine it with other perks, like maybe Remember Me as well, to get those obsession stacks guaranteed. Yeah, I'll put it like there because on its own I don't think it's very good. And yeah, I think these other perks are a bit better, so I'll put it there. Moving on is leverage. Leverage is just literally a worse sloppy butcher, and also it takes so long to activate. I will probably put it in D tier. It's really bad. Yeah, I'll put Iron Maiden there, I think. But yeah, leverage is terrible. It's terrible. Like, literally never run it over any other perks that apply Mangled or Hemorrhage. Okay, moving on is Thwack. The next time you break a breakable wall or pallet, all survivors within 32 meters of your location scream and reveal their aura. This is not terrible, but it does need to be after hooking a survivor. So there's a few activation processes, but I do think it's better than some of these perks here. I think it's probably around here because the thing is, you need to break a pallet and then 32 meters of your location scream, but usually when you're breaking a pallet, you're in a chase already, so you want to be finishing that chase, which means you don't really need to know where everyone else is. So yeah, I'll put it there. I think it can get value because you might know if a survivor's near as well, or like an easier target, but I don't know. It probably is a little bit further down even. I think I'll put it around there. Yeah, I'll change this around a bit. Okay, next is forced hesitation. This is when you down a survivor. The survivors around you get slowed. So this is only good if you're slugging, and it can be good if there are two survivors near you, but it is situational. So I will probably put it like here, maybe a little bit better than Thwack and Call O'Brien. But I think that it is, yeah, situational, and it only works on killers that like need that hindered. But yeah, 20% hindered is really long. Like, you're gonna get that hit for sure, so I'll put it here. I think it's okay. It might be better than Blood Warden. I'll probably put it around here. Like, it can get value, but it's not like better than some other perks. Next up is genetic limits. Whenever a survivor finishes a healing action, they suffer from exhausted for 32 seconds. This can be good, but I think 32 seconds is a little bit too short, and you may not get value from this at all. I'll probably put it at like near the bottom of C tier, probably around here. Yeah, I think probably around here because that doesn't really do too much most of the time. So yeah, I'll put it like, it could get value maybe if you want to go to them and then like you need to like go to them straight away pretty much to get value out of this. So but yeah, I think it's better than all these perks because it's not completely useless. Okay, moving on is machine learning. This is a terrible perk. I think they tried to buff it recently, but the thing is the activation process is just way too long on it. So yeah, you have to kick a gen, and then once it gets completed, you get the value. I think it's not D tier, but it is definitely quite low. I might put Shadowborn into C tier. I don't think it's quite as bad as some of the other perks. But yeah, this is probably at the very bottom of C tier. Because once again, the activation is just so hard, and yeah, so for 60 seconds you get undetectable and 10% haste, which is like okay, might be a little bit better than like these perks, but that's as far as it goes. It's not very good at all. Okay, moving on is Alien Instinct. Whenever you hook a survivor, Alien Instinct activates. The aura of the farthest injured survivor is revealed for 5 seconds, and that survivor suffers from the oblivious status effect for 20 seconds. I think it's okay because like this can help sometimes, but if no survivor's injured, you won't get value. But I think it's actually not terrible. I'll put it, it's probably better than Spies from the Shadows, probably better than Haunted Grounds and Nurse's Calling. I think it's probably around there in total because I mean that can help with finding survivors, and the Oblivious helps because unlike a perk like Barbecue and Chili, they don't know that you're gonna be there. So yeah, I think it's decent, but it wouldn't get as much value as some other perks. Yeah, I'll put it around there. Okay, moving on is Rapid Brutality. This gets rid of Bloodlust, but when you hit a survivor, you get 5% haste for like 10 seconds. So removing Bloodlust is quite a big detriment. But this is good on some killers like Clown. So it's probably, I'll put it around like here because yeah, getting rid of Bloodlust is quite bad. So I don't think it's, yeah, I think it's probably around here in total. Okay, moving on is Ultimate Weapon. This got nerfed. It used to be one of the best perks in the game, but now when you open a locker, it reveals the survivors that were near the locker. It's not like everywhere, but I do think this is still a decent information perk because survivors in your that's still like free value, and all you have to do is search a locker. I'll probably put it around here. I think it's okay. But the thing is, yeah, you can't just find survivors wherever they are, so you're not guaranteed to get value, and it has like quite a longer cooldown now. So I'll probably put it like here. I think it's better than Gearhead. Maybe not actually. I think it's around, I'll put it like here. So yeah, moving on is batteries included. Whenever you're within 12 meters of a completed generator, you get 5% haste. This is like okay. It can help you end chases quicker and potentially get a hit you wouldn't normally get, but you need to be near a completed generator, which means it's only good towards the end game, and 12 meters is quite a short distance, so it's situational. I will put it around here. I think that's a good place to have it. Okay, next up is Friends Till the End. Friends Till the End is quite good. Whenever you hook any survivor that is not the obsession, their aura is revealed for 10 seconds, and the survivor suffers from exposed. This is the obsession. So I think that this is really good if you want to just find other survivors. And yeah, it's a good 12 hooking perk. So I think it's probably better than, yeah, these perks. I think it's better than Merciless Storm. I think it's better than Spirit Fury. I actually think it's really good because it doesn't require much activation. There's no cooldown. All you got to do is just hook the obsession. I mean, hook a survivor that's not the obsession, which is, yeah, that's easy. And it also tells you where to go after hooking them. So I think it's probably better than like a lot of these. I'll put it right around here, I think, because if you don't hook a survivor that's not the obsession, it could be bad. And also if you know, like, you do need to hook specific survivors, so it's not like super good. But yeah, I think it definitely can get a lot of value. It's just not like as consistent as these other perks. So yeah, moving on is Hex 2 can play. So this is this is probably the worst Hex perk in the game. Anytime you are stunned or blinded by any survivor a total of 2 times, then a dull totem gets lit, and any survivor that tries to blind you is blinded, and that's all it does. And it's only for 1.5 seconds, and it's a Hex perk. So this is probably D tier, because it just doesn't really do anything at all. I think it's probably, yeah, the worst Hex perk in the game. Yeah, I think it's probably around here. I mean, them being blinded could help in some circumstances, but I think yeah, I don't know, it's kind of just a joke perk rather than like a perk that actually does anything useful. So yeah, I think it's pretty bad. Okay, Unbound. Whenever a survivor becomes injured by any means, it activates for 30 seconds, and you are granted 5% haste for 10 seconds after vaulting a window. This is all very specific, and I think it's really bad on its own. You need to run like other vault speed perks. So it's probably yeah, close to the bottom of C tier. I think it's probably around there. That's not very good. I think that, yeah, you need a lot of specific circumstances for that. Next up is Undone. This is terrible. I don't even need to explain what it does. I think it's like failing a skill check. You get 3 tokens, and they need to fail so many skill checks to get any value from this. Like, they need to be terrible. Yeah, it's D tier for sure. It's probably even worse than Thanatophobia. Yeah, I think it's probably around here. At least it's not terrible. Like, you can get some value from it, but like, yeah, it's really bad. It needs a rework for sure. Next up is Unforeseen. Unforeseen is actually a really good perk because it's unlike Trail of Torment. They can't just go back to the gen and stop it from regressing. Basically, when you kick a gen, you get undetectable for like 30 seconds, I think, or maybe even more than that. I think it's probably around here. It's actually like really good. It's probably meta right now, especially with all the buffed other gen kick perks. I would say it's probably better than like than some of these even, yeah, because that's like really good, and it doesn't have too long of a cooldown either. So I think it's probably here. That's probably as far as it goes. It's really good. One of the best perks in the game. Moving on is Dark Arrogance. This is also quite a good perk. The longest stun and blind doesn't really do too much. And especially if you use certain killers, 25% extra volt speed is pretty good. I think it's probably around C though. It's probably just below superior anatomy. Probably around here. I think it is pretty good, but I mean that extra stun and blind can hurt sometimes. But yeah, that volt speed is good. Even on its own, it can still like get hits you wouldn't normally get. So yeah, I think it's pretty good. It's okay. Moving on is Languid Touch. When a survivor scares off a crow within 36 meters of your location, it activates and it causes that survivor to suffer from exhaustion for 10 seconds. That is so specific, and it has a cooldown. Okay, yeah, no, that's D for sure. That's really bad, because that doesn't even do anything really. I think it's probably around here even. Probably here. That's actually really bad. It doesn't really do anything. Yeah, that's about it. It's terrible. When a survivor scares off a crow, then they get exhausted for 10 seconds. That's so specific. Alright, whatever, that's terrible. Weave Attunement. Whenever an item is depleted for the first time, it is automatically dropped, and then auras of drop survivors' items are revealed to you, as well as the auras of any survivors within 12 meters of them. That could be okay. I mean, it's a decent information perk, I guess. I'll probably put it like probably around here. I mean that could be good, but I think it's also quite specific. And 12 meters of a dropped item is also quite specific. I do think it's probably better than Spies from Shadows, Nurse's Calling, Hubris. Is it better than Ultimate Weapon? It's probably a little bit better than Ultimate Weapon, but that's as far as I think it's gonna go. So yeah, that wraps up this tier list, finally. That is all the killer perks. Now, obviously, this may not be completely accurate, because obviously, like, you know, I went through this quite fast, because obviously I didn't want to be here for like 10 hours, but this is probably quite accurate. You can see that there are a lot of bad perks in Dead by Daylight, compared to good perks. So, you know, they could do something about that, potentially. But yeah, this is obviously my opinion. And yeah, that's the end of the video. So I will see you in the next one.